We've had our chance to ask questions of our officials, and now I want to move that we adopt the recommendations set out in the paper. Do I have a seconder for that? Seconded by John Walker, and it's open for discussion and debate. You should all be mellow and relaxed after lunch. I'm hoping that it'll just sneak through. Okay, Councillor Filipaina.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. To talk about mellow, I'm glad I'm the first speaker to this. Mr. Mayor, look, I have some concerns, and this is why I asked the questions earlier to our local boards. And the concerns I have, if I deal with them one by one, is firstly the youth panel, and only the youth panel. I believe around the geographical area is that the numbers should stay the same, and I mean obviously, and we've heard from our officers that currently we've got 20 members of the youth panel. I believe that we need to keep it at 20, and the main reason for me is the geographical area of Tamaki Makaurau that they will end up covering, and it's important that we have, as one of the chairs mentioned, well, both of them really, Le Maunga, Lydia Sosene, and also Angela Dalton. They mentioned their percentages of youth within the area, 46 and 40% under 25, and I think Lydia also mentioned the fact that you know, they haven't really been consulted, as in the youth community haven't been consulted even through our elections that have just been completed. So I mean, for me, the numbers, and it's not just because it's 20, but the numbers gives us an opportunity for our youth across Tamaki to be engaged, and that's just so important around engaging our youth. And so for me, I've put up an amendment, Mr. Mayor, and then I don't know if anybody's going to second it. I'll second. But for me, it's just for the composition to remain the same at 20. Mr. Mayor, look at, and also councillors around here, the youth voice has been missing. It's been missing over the last 3 elections that we've had at the Auckland Council. So for me, and the only reason I found in our documents around changing the numbers, for me anyway, is on page 130, or 138 with the terms of reference is the 8 to 10. But in the document that we had, I think it's on 78, page 78, and it's 118, as in the bullet point. So, and Your Worship, on that particular bullet point, it was just mentioned all the panels are large, and the youth panel, advisory panel in particular, is very large. This means that the available budget to pay panel members is spread thinly, compromising the ability of panel members to engage deeply. I just don't know where that's come from, because there's less money to pay them. This compromises the ability of panel members to engage deeply with the youth community. So, Mr. Mayor, it is there. That's one particular issue, and I think I've got about 2 minutes left of my speaking time.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I practiced all last night on this, so I've got 2 minutes. So, Your Worship, my other issue is in the terms of reference and the Chief Liaison Councillor position that you've included in the terms of reference. And I've spoken to Councillor Casey and told her that I will be raising these questions. And Mr. Mayor, I just can't see the reasoning behind the duplication that we have with that particular position. Because when you read the terms of reference for that role, is that if there are any issues from that come to the liaison councillor, it appears that I have to then bring those to the attention of the chief liaison councillor, who will then take it up with you. Over the last 6 years, the liaison councillors to our respective advisory committees could go directly either to yourself or to the governing body, but it appears with this particular one, we have to go through the chief liaison councillor if there are any issues, and then they would whoever that person, and at the moment it's Councillor Casey, will go to you. So Mr. Mayor, you took the committee structure from 19 to 9, and we all applaud that. But now from my perspective anyway, you've put another layer in for the liaison councillors on the advisory panels to having to go to get basically permission to go and see you, when I would rather go directly to you if there's any issues with my particular advisory panel, which is the Pacific one. So, and the amendment really, and I'll finish after this, but the amendment that I've got up there is really to be put into the terms of reference in regards to staying at 20. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Filipaina. I've got Councillor Simpson wanting to speak.
Your Worship, I acknowledge the need to engage with all of Auckland, both strategically, regionally and locally. I acknowledge the diversity we have as a region, ethnically, with young and old and those of different genders. I just don't think this is the way we should do it. My belief is this is a slap in the face to the role of local boards who already engage with their communities of all types. They all, nearly all of us, have youth boards. They have work programs for seniors. They work hard to engage with a multitude of ethnic people in their decision making and in the way they feed back through to their governing body members. Auckland, I heard a couple of days ago in our governance workshop that Auckland has about 190 different ethnicities within our region. If you have covered the what I'm saying is I don't think we can actually cover all those ethnicities in 6 to 10 people on the ethnic people's panel. I also think that we're struggling to engage with other ethnic groups and different types of people in local government. And if that is done in every single ward through the local boards across the region, that we will potentially get some of those people who haven't been engaged in local government really feeling that they are being listened to by, locally. And then as a result of that being listened to, maybe get more involved in local government per se. Look, you haven't been afraid to turn your back on what has already been in place and make changes for the better. I just don't think that the recommendations in this report are good enough for you and for Auckland. And my recommendation is that we should discuss this with the local boards, who I think will deliver a better result for less.
Sorry, point of order. I thought we were discussing the amendment. Sorry, not the bulk of the recommendations. I thought it was just the amendment on the numbers at the advisory panel. Can I get some clarification on that, please?
Yeah. I thought you'd foreshadowed the amendment,
yep,
and I was just going to take some broad debate around the issues as a whole, and come back to the motion if you're happy with that, Councillor.
I just thought we were debating on that. Sorry.
Yeah, no, sorry. I haven't lost your amendment. You've foreshadowed it. It will be put and debated, and I've had another amendment to that foreshadowed by Councillor Casey, that the number be 15. So I've got both of those in my mind. But I thought we'd go generally first, Alf, and then come back and deal with the amendment if you're happy with that.
No, look, I'll then put my hand up to speak generally, and not on the amendment.
Okay, you are entitled to speak on the amendment and generally. I think. Yes, you understand the standing orders appropriately. Councillor Simpson, sorry to interrupt you.
So you've lost my full flight.
That was the idea.
So I think it might have been. So I think
you were talking about there were 190 ethnicities, and how can a panel of 9 to 10 deal with them?
So I think what we should do is talk to local boards about this, because I think they all feel that they have engagements with the sorts of people that are in the criteria of disability, ethnic, Pacific, rainbow, seniors, youth, etc. And looking at using a shared governance model, which we all admit we haven't done very well in the first 6 years, to deliver a better result for these people, for Auckland, at at a lot less money than the 400,000 that's being mooted, because we already have engagement officers with local boards. Auckland are asking us to deliver more for less, and I think we could with local boards. I think we can still have the councillor liaisons with them, but I think it should be region-wide. So I'm sort of foreshadowing an amendment whereby we actually remove this from the agenda for decision today until we've at least had a discussion with the local boards.
Okay, that's another foreshadowed amendment. Thank you very much. Councillor Newman.
Oh, thank you, Your Worship. I'm just speaking to, in support of the amendment which I've seconded, but reserving our right to speak to the substantive motion. Your Worship, I read the Martin Jenkins report, and I have to say I'm disappointed in the recommendations set out in that document as it relates to the amendment proposed to the composition of the Youth Advisory Panel, where we move away from geographic to competency. I mean, firstly, I'd say about the competency, according to whom? According to the young people, according to staff and some of the people sitting around this table who, well, we might have views on these matters, but I don't think anyone who would necessarily be judging the applications with themselves qualified to sit on these youth advisory panel, because we're in the wrong demographic. I think that these youth advisory panels representing the young people in their community is something that it may or may not work, but the concern that I had with respect to the Martin Jenkins report, when you look at Appendix 3 and the review participants, I don't see any engagement with or information from the youth councils that currently operate, which I think could usefully inform consideration of this matter. And so in the absence of that information, which I think would be very, very important, I'm reluctant to move away from the geographic composition of the Youth Advisory Panel. Now, that doesn't mean to say that in the future there might not be that there could be that we're precluded from making further changes in the future. But it seems to me, with the maturing development of the youth councils, there is an opportunity, I think, to improve the Youth Advisory Panel over time, simply through the growing strength of the young people who are now populating not only the youth councils, but also now coming onto the local boards. I mean, in my own ward, we've just had a 20-year-old Samoan New Zealander, Sarah Colcord, get elected from Weymouth Village. She is a former chair of the Maniarewa Youth Council.
Yeah, indeed. It's exactly what I was saying.
And what a fabulous result that was, and how impressive she is. And she is helping to drive greater level of participation by youth on youth issues, but also for those young people to be informing policy and placemaking, which affects a much wider constituency than just young people, which I would have thought was one of the key results that we would want to see in terms of empowering young people, either through those youth councils or through the Youth Advisory Panel, Your Worship. So I don't want to see a change at this point to the way in which the YAP is being constituted, because I think that the changes are occurring over time as the process and the structures and organisations mature and young people become more engaged and involved. And my ward, with the local board in Maniarewa, is not the only local board that is making progress. There are young people getting elected to other local boards on merit, and I think that that bodes well for young people. So I think that we should maintain the existing structure of the YAP and have the process for constituting it based on geographic. And that doesn't mean to say that we can't look at the option in the future if we think that's appropriate.
Thank you, Councillor. I'm not sure about the acronym YAP. Might have unfortunate connotations. Youth Advisory Panel.
Yapping away again.
Councillor Collins.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to raise some concerns I had with the report and the way in which it was done. I've got some challenges around the methodology, the participants, and of course the cost that I'm now aware of. When you look at the methodology, it gives us a base of assumptions as to how the research was conducted without any theoretical underpinning at all. And so it talks about multi-methods, but it doesn't tell us where it's drawing its multi-methods position from. And so I've got issues around that. If we're going to use a purist academic approach to multi-methods, I would be interested to know if any of the research was done in a language other than English. The other thing that concerns me, and it's a point that's been raised, is the participants. If we look at the list of participants, in my view, it's bureaucratic heavy. And we haven't heard, I believe, from a wide range of people, including those who were part of the panels, and I think that can easily skew the results of the report, which is where I think some of this debate is coming from now that we're wanting to change the numbers. I think for me, glaringly obvious is this underpinning notion that we want diversity, but if you read the report closely, it wants diversity in the way in which we engage our communities, yet the report is seeking uniformity. Yes. And that's the basic problem here, is that we've got to understand that these communities are different. They act differently, they come to the table differently, and yet we've got this general assumption or this general recommendation in the report that says, let's just make all the panels a number of 10 people. So I'm a little bit divided, because while I was going to second the idea of going to 15 or up to 15, but I take on board very clearly the points that Councillors Filipina and Newman are making, because we're seeking to get uniform. It seems to me that the thrust to get uniformity isn't driven by a diversity imperative, and that's the basic problem that I have. And so I would, whilst I'm trying to work out where I should be voting, I think it's important that we understand that this is about engaging diverse communities. The report, I don't believe, has been done, in my view, satisfactorily to be able to gauge those diverse voices. And so if we're looking at the evidence that's before us, the way in which that evidence has been presented, I don't think it's truly representative of the diversity it is seeking.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Cooper.
Thank you. It's been interesting listening to everybody's views of the Youth Advisory Panel, but I've been the councillor liaison for the last 3 years, so I'm very understanding of what's been happening. So I want to address a few things, and I'll speak to the amendment as well to get it over and done with. Firstly, just to what Councillor Simpson was talking about, I think that in some ways here we're smushing down local board and regional roles again into one.